right. Okay. Hello, coaches. How are you today? I'm so excited to be here and bringing you our special guest, Barbara Trapp. Barbara Trapp is a certified professional organizer and productivity coach. She has over 15 years of experience in human resources, training and development, and process improvement. And she holds a specialist certificates in residential organizing, life transitions, and workplace productivity. She is also a certified DISC and driving forces facilitator and a full focus planner certified pro. Barbara graduated from FSU with a BS in leisure. And yes, you heard that right. Leisure. I'm going to find out about that later on, but has moved 23 times and 3 of them in 2022 alone. In 2016, she quit a well-paying job in a toxic environment, packed her car, and drove across the country for 3 months, listening to many of the top business and personal development books. 22 states and 52 books later, she was ready to start her own business. Barbara is the owner of Zen Your Den, Zen Your Biz, and offers non-judgmental help to busy and overwhelmed people. Welcome, Barbara. That is impressive. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm great. I was out in the garden today and I'm ready to be inside again. So got a little bit of sun on me.
Yes. Well, welcome. And your bio is just very impressive. And I'm so excited about that.
Thank you.
What a lifetime experience. But I want to ask you, what are two of the things that you help clients with the most?
It sounds really odd, but sometimes I just sit there while they do things they don't want to do. So one of my clients tells me regularly, "Thank you for making me do the things I don't want to do." It's not really a great reference, but what she means is that I help her stay on track. And that's what I do. I help people get and stay on track and make a plan so they can kind of get back some hours in their day and their week.
And that's really important because so often we just don't know where to start. So we get in that procrastination mode, and without some direction, we lose our way. I love that you actually do that. Let me ask you, because people are probably thinking, how is she going to help me with organizing if it's virtual? So how does virtual organizing actually work?
Well, it was actually on my vision board to go at least 30% virtual by the end of 2020. And I held 2 in-person vision board workshops. And I had no idea what was coming, like everybody else. And guess what? I hit my goal. I was 100% virtual by the end of 2020. And it's worked so well because, especially with my clients who have ADHD or other distractions, because we have to be hyper-focused on one project, one task at a time. Nobody can disappear into another room and look at a million other things. We work with one thing at a time. And the other thing that makes it great is I used to drive all over the place, and I used to have like 4-hour sessions to make it worth it. And that's a huge chunk of time for somebody to, give up in their day. And this way I could actually work more frequently with people and in sessions as short as an hour. So my clients will look at their schedules and they'll book times throughout the week, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever they have, and we get to work. So I had one client I was working with one time every Monday, 4 hours. And once I went virtual, we did 3 2-hour shifts a week virtual. And she said, I like it because you only see what I want you to see. I'd already seen it all anyway, and nothing shocks me, but it's a lot easier for people to squeeze those smaller amounts of time into their schedules.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. You said something that I want to ask you about. You said you had 2 vision board workshops. Is that something you do as part of organizing?
Well, I'm also a productivity coach, and about 5 years ago, I made my first real vision board. And what I mean by real is, I mean, I really put some time into it. The workshop itself was only about 2 hours of cutting out magazine things and putting them on a board. And of course, I see the word back there. It says decide. I always pick a word of the year. And one year I was having a hard time deciding what the word was, and I realized what it was. It was decide. So, and it takes me longer to come up with ideas and things. And so 2 hours just never seemed to be enough for me. So I did a half-day workshop in person, two of them. And then after I went virtual, I've actually had 3 virtual vision board workshops, and they're spread out. It's spread out over 3 weeks. So one session we do goals, we do a values and needs assessment. The next week we do goal setting. And then the third week we do a productivity session, like, okay, how are we going to make all this happen? And in between, they're working on their vision boards, and we're doing show and tell in between. So, and it's worked pretty well. So gives everybody a little bit more time that they need to really think about it.
I love that. I really do. I want to ask you, there are a lot of people who do, some of the organizing and stuff like that. Do you follow practices of like the minimalist or Marie Kondo?
No, and I've had people ask me that before. In fact, one client called me and asked, she said, are you going to make me pile all my clothes on the bed, like in a giant mountain, and then leave me and make me go through it? I said, no, stop watching that. No, I won't do that. And I'm kind of like somewhere in the middle. And the main thing is, it's really whatever works for the person. So what I like to find out is, if I'm going to ask you, are you an innie or an outie? And I'm not talking about belly buttons.
Okay, what are you talking about?
Like I was getting personal. So I ask people when I'm doing an intake, are you an innie? Do you like to have things out where you can see them because you need the visual cues and inspiration? Or do you need things put away out of sight, inside closets and drawers and just tucked away because it's a distraction? So is it out of sight, out of mind, and you need things out, or you need things put away so they're not distracting? So if you need things out, lots of color and things, like I like things out too. So you're an outie. So if you need things tucked in drawers and hidden, then you're an innie. So I like to find out where that is first. And what's always interesting is if there are 2 people in the household who are different, and that often happens with couples. So I like to help people figure out like a happy medium. How can we have a little compromise here? So yeah, so there you go. Think about whether you're an innie or an outie, and what the people who you live with might be, what their tendencies are. And then we go from there.
Interesting. I'm going to hold off on my answer for a little bit. I'm kind of
We'll say they're a combination, and that's okay.
Yeah, I am kind of a little bit of both. If my vision board and all that, I want it out so I can see it, but
Right.
I do like organization, and I can really remember where I put things, whereas my boyfriend is a very unorganized organizer. If I
Okay.
can say that, he organizes everything and then he forgets where he puts stuff, or he doesn't put it back where he so it's a little bit crazy, but I let him do his
Yes.
thing. I do my thing.
Things
So
can be neat
yes.
but not be organized. And you could be organized but not appear to be neat. And the
Yeah.
main thing is that you can find what you need. So it's even more important to be able to put things away, because you're like with paper, you're only going to retrieve about 20% of what you ever file away anyway. So it's more important to have a good system where you know where to put it. And retrieving, that's a good thing too, but it's more important to be able to put it away.
That's a very interesting point. I never heard that before. So that makes a little bit of sense to me. So let me ask you, a lot of us, we get stretched, we're overstressed and stretched out to the limit. What do you recommend for stressed out and stretched business owners and entrepreneurs to do to regain like that enthusiasm and that motivation and life balance? What do you suggest for us?
Okay, so the number one thing, and it doesn't sound like it fits with this, but it's to get some sleep. So it sounds obvious, but When I was working in person and even virtually now, when I'm doing an intake, I'll ask somebody what their top three most stressful areas of their home are. What is causing the most stress in your life? And they'll name different rooms and things or locations, or maybe it's a schedule or something. But I'll also ask them how they are sleeping. And they say, oh, not so well. And it's so what's the state of your room? And so, well, it's pretty much it's chaos in there. My office, half my office is on my bed. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we start there so you can get a good night's sleep? So I think that's, if you have a very cluttered home and you aren't getting good sleep, I would say start with your room. And you'd think I'd say start with your office, but I'm going to say start with your bedroom and try to clear that out and make that a peaceful space for yourself, because you can't do much without having rest.
And that's true. It's so very true. And I know in our room, the walls are a little bit darker. We have the dark shades. We don't have like clocks that have blue light and everything. Like I
Right.
remember when I first started living with my boyfriend, I was always looking at my phone to see the time, and he'd be like, stop it.
Yeah.
You're not getting
Yeah.
sleep. Stop it. So, and I was like, no TV in the bedroom? Oh, that took me a while to get used to, but I tell you what a difference it makes to just have the bedroom be for sleeping.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people don't have the space though and have to have an office tucked away. And if you can do anything to screen it off visually, even if it means like covering it with a piece of taffeta or something, or having a drape across the wall, or tucking it into a closet anyway. So anywhere you can put it so it's not in your immediate view when you are in bed trying to sleep, because it's just really important to get that out of your head. And then you can start being more productive during the day. So I always like to tackle things that are going to help somebody feel better.
I think that's really important. And, because there's so many things that we can start with, but getting the right amount of sleep and not having that stimulus is really, really important.
Yeah.
Because especially if you work and you go home from work and you're overstimulated and then you come in the house and everything's a mess and not organized, that just causes, for me, a lot of chaos. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said something about Marie Kondo. There was something in the news a month or so ago where it said Marie Kondo's given up. And she says, I've got several kids and it just doesn't matter to me as much. My place is kind of a mess right now. Something like that. You know what? She's human and all she did was reprioritize. So, things don't have to be spotless, absolutely, in maybe you feel that need to have it that way, but it doesn't have to be that, done is better than perfect. And, just, you have to cut yourself a little slack. If Marie Kondo could do that, we can too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've heard the term triage several times, related not to hospital and
Mhm.
emergency triage, but for all of this. What is it? And because I don't know that my audience would know that, because I'm not
Sure.
quite sure. I've just heard it. But what would be the first steps to actually scheduling a triage?
Okay, so I actually used that term today with a client. We did triage with her paper, with her mail. So, and this particular client just hated paper so much, she just was afraid to go to the mailbox. She didn't even want to bring stuff out and just add the piles. So we frequently, and she thinks it's the craziest thing, but she's not the only one, where I'll sit with somebody while they go through their mail. And part of it is decision making. What do I do with this? What do I do with that? So if we only have 5 or 10 minutes left in a session, I said, let's do a quick mail triage, and we will cull it, separate it, figure out what's really important and put the rest aside. And again, that's kind of what you have to do. So let's say you only had 5 minutes. Somebody was coming to the door in, okay, that's too stressful. Let's say in 30 minutes, we'd say, what should you do to prepare for that person? Well, do the dishes. My mother used to say, do the dishes and make your bed. Well, I'm not going to have people walking in my bedroom, so that's not important. But I'd go from the entranceway and just do a few triage clearing things, and just enough to, just to have a place to sit and be okay and welcome them in. So It's really just doing the bare minimum that you need for whatever the situation is and being okay with it.
Mhm. And I have to say, over the years, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, heading in that direction. And I think when we're first getting started, myself included, sometimes we don't want to look at that mail. Sometimes we don't want to see the bills coming in. And because as we're getting started as entrepreneurs, we might have that little bit of struggle. So really setting some kind of, plan in place for that, I think it is really, really important. And I think just even in an office space, if you were to help somebody in an office space, would that be including like how to organize their office so that they can access things easier as well?
Sure, it'd be the physical, but it would also be probably this schedule. We'd probably start a big kind of a grass catcher list, like, every piece of paper, it's usually something you have to do something with it, make a decision, or maybe it's a reminder or something. So I'd say, let's put this all on one list, all the to-dos you need to do. I also like to ask people what kind of planning system they use. And half the people say, well, I've got like 4. And so, okay, let's pick one and let's whittle it down to one. And most people actually are paper planner type people. Some are digital. I use a combination.
I use a combination, but I'm so paper.
I know. And the thing is, if you think you're a digital planner person, but you still have scrap notes and post-it notes and things on the back of envelopes all over, you're probably a paper planner person. So triage isn't just with things, but it could be with schedules as well. So I have a client that likes to go by the Pomodoro system. That's like 25-minute spurts of intense work at a time. So we talk in Pomodoro. So I'll say, okay, you've got all this stuff to do. How many Pomodoros do you have left today? How many do you have tomorrow? And then she'll list like the big projects she has and say, let's triage, let's prioritize what's the most important thing to do. What's the biggest project, and list the steps. And we kind of estimate how many Pomodoros it takes. So if we plan, she has 3 Pomodoros tomorrow, and we plan 2 of them. She has 3 kids and she's doing a lot of carpooling. So even 2 25-minute blocks is like gold. So, but I would tell her, just plan 2, because you're probably going to have something run over and you're going to need that 3rd Pomodoro for other stuff that pops up. I'm constantly triaging as well. So I may have a long list of errands to run or other, we all tend to put too much on our to-do list. And I'm constantly triaging, meaning I'm crossing stuff off, thinking, okay, is this important? Can I put this off next week? Or how about tomorrow? This isn't, and I'm okay with drawing the arrows and putting it in the next day. I'm always trying to make the day as realistic as possible, because nobody can get 20 important things done in one day. You just can't. If you can pick out the top 3, you've probably heard that, or maybe the one thing, pick out the top 3 things that may be really pressing, get those done. If you have time for more, pick out the next top 3 and work on those. But if you got 3 important things done today, that would be huge, depending on what it is. So rather than, 20 random things. So I suggest to people, when you're trying to prioritize, think about things that are going to have the biggest impact on the future. A phone call that you've been avoiding, and that might be the same thing, something that's going to put wheels into motion. And also do something for a significant other that they've been asking you about. That just kind of keeps the household happy as well. So, and of course you should do something for yourself too, but those are just different ways to think about it.
Well, I love that too, that, something like you said, mentioned the phone call. Part of those things should be income producing activities, that I call them, right? Something that
Absolutely.
moving your business, and the phone calls, I think, I don't know if you can speak any more on that, but those are usually the things that people are like, ooh, I don't want to make it. Or, even especially if it's to somebody that, is what we call on our chicken list. It's the important person that we don't want to call and reach out to and ask them about, if they'd like to collaborate or something like that.
Right.
I love that you mentioned that. So they should be, things that are going to move your business.
Absolutely. And, maybe you reward yourself with something. Like if it were me, I'd say, okay, I'm going to make 3 calls and then I get to go out to the yard and work on my garden or something. And I'm not going to do anything else until I get those 3 calls done. So yeah, making that part of your plan is important. I mean, you need to have some revenue coming in for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what would be the next step? Is it like you said, time blocking those things, creating that schedule, putting tasks together? Do you have like a list that you use, that like a checkoff list? And the second part of that would be when your clients come to you, like say if it's week to week or whatever, and they're
Mhm.
like, "I didn't get it done," or what kind of motivation, or what do you do? Like, do you have a way of just saying, well, what stood in the way, and how come you didn't get it done? Or
I would do that. I tend not to ask why. It's better that they come up with that question because it can come across as judgmental. But if it's a phone call, I might say, well, how long would that take? And they might say, yeah, maybe 5 minutes. I said, okay, put me on mute and make that call. They're like, what? I said, you just said it's going to take 5 minutes. We have a 60-minute session. Go make that call. Sometimes it's just, and they're sometimes shocked, but that's what accountability is. And I can, most of my clients know by now that if they've got a quick call they need to make that they've been putting off with it, they're going to be making it on our next session if they haven't done it already. But they're always surprised how it's usually shorter or easier than they thought because they've been building it up so long. And another option might be, as if we're close to the end of a session, I say, okay, we'll get off this call, you go do that and message me back when you've done it.
that's
So
awesome,
yeah,
because I've on my coaching calls in my group that I have actually asked the coaches who wants to take a challenge, and of course they all say yes until I tell them what it is, and that has been things that I have had them do, and they're like, and some of them have not been able to do it, like go live on Facebook, and
yeah,
the other ones have gone live on Facebook and realized that, oh my God, it was a lot easier. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And so
yeah,
it's really just breaking that barrier that we put in front of ourselves.
right. And it's really with any task. If sometimes your perception of it is just totally out of whack. Even something as simple as, let's say, repotting a plant. So years ago, I bought some little herb plant from the store and I put it on my porch. And like 2 weeks, I kept putting a little water in it. I thought, this poor plant's going to die. I just need to repot this thing. And I was like, it's kind of an annoying thing. So I set a timer. I had that thing potted and I was cleaned up in less than 5 minutes. And here I'd been avoiding it for so long. I tend to time things that I don't like to do, or I'll make it a contest, like who likes to unload the dishwasher? Nobody. So I'll time it. I'll say, I bet I can do this in 3 minutes, or I can make my bed and change the sheets in 5 or something, or I can, let's see, I'm going to give myself 30 minutes to process any transactions in my QuickBooks account. And I try to do that every week. So time blocking, and you can just see the visual of it.
There you go.
I like to have that. Yeah, I do that with my clients and we kind of block out the ideal week. So of course we do some time tracking, figure out where their time's going for an entire week. And then we see how we can batch some of those things. And we also see what they can give up. Do they need to do it? Can somebody else do it? Is that going to be a great thing to put on a job description for a virtual assistant, or an admin assistant if they already have one? I have 2, they're part-time, but I'm always trying to think of what I can give to them to do to take off my plate. So I batch things like my grocery shopping, errands, business things like processing transactions. I'll be backing up my computer at the same time, checking appointments, updating my scheduling app, looking at networking events. And, eventually when you get in that mode, it can just take a couple hours.
Yes.
So, but And sometimes people will say, you know what, that's great, but my schedule changes so much. I can't tell you if I can get this done on Monday or Tuesday. So I say, "Oh, then have these blocks that float." So you can have floating blocks or floating routines that maybe you know that you're going to get a workout in. Maybe you can't do it at 8 a.m. every day, but maybe you're going to get it in between 8 and 11 or something. So try that. If your schedule is just kind of all over the place, you want to wrangle it in as much as you can. But if you have some limitations because of the type of work you do, then you can be a little bit more broad about it.
I love that. I want to ask you, do you find that your clients, when you look at their schedule and your time blocking, that and they actually see, what they're spending their time on, do they find that they come up with more time than they think they have to do the things that they want or need to do for their business?
Once they start time blocking, they get more time. That's the goal. I had one client who was working randomly in his business more than on his business, all the way up to like 9 o'clock at night and early in the morning. And I said, you can't do this forever, and you want to grow your business, you got to hire some people. So what we started doing was we made an organizational chart for him, and he was in we made it with like a 5-year plan in mind. And we put his name in every position that wasn't filled yet. And he had a couple employees. And so we started building all of the job descriptions, and we started looking at all the things he was doing and just started putting those tasks on the right list. And it took quite a while to do. And we were always tweaking it, and we still go back and tweak it now. But his business has quadrupled in the past 2 years. And
Wow.
his workload, he's doing half the work. In
Wow.
fact, he's not even working in his business anymore. He's already looking at the next business and having his team run the one he's got. So
I love that. I love
yeah.
that you actually did a chart and you put all the positions and you made those job descriptions, because a lot of times we don't really realize what those job descriptions are and can be delegated to somebody else.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I help business owners do, getting everything out of their head and onto paper. And it's part of organizing too. And that's part of my HR and training and hiring background as well. So I'm always looking and say, what should this position be doing? And one thing that you have to be careful of when you are hiring and bringing people in and making job descriptions, that you are not managing by person, that you're managing by process. So you're not designing a job description around a person you have in mind. You are making the ideal job description, and you're going to try to find the right person for that.
Oh, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah. And yet I have to remind them sometimes, because you might say, well, this person, that's not really their strength. I said, yeah, but that's the job. But so that's also where doing an assessment to see what strengths your team have can be really useful, because then this person, it's never going to be their strength. Maybe you will look at the job descriptions and say, does it make sense to make some adjustments? But you really have to just bear in mind that if you have somebody who doesn't meet any of that, they're not skilled at any of it, that you've got the wrong person in the wrong place. Right. So, but that's why it's great to get it out of your head onto paper, even if you don't have the money for it yet, or even know where to get them. At least you're going to have the plan when you do find that person.
Yeah, and there's sometimes that, I've actually bartered with people before through networking. So when I first started really early on, through networking, I had somebody who wanted to lose weight and have a coach, and she was a bookkeeper, which, let me tell you, I needed really bad. So we bartered, and it was a great opportunity to do that. So if you have that job description or that
Yeah.
thing that you need, and you are out networking, you can always do that. So this was really, really awesome. I thank you for
Oh, you're
sharing
welcome.
this with everybody. I always like to ask my guests what's on their bucket list. So what's on your bucket list that you would like to get, done? What's one of the biggest things on your bucket list?
Uh, Next big project is writing a book, and I have an outline almost done. But I am kind of a caregiver for my mother. She's doing pretty well. We're living together, but I'm finishing a garden in our backyard. And but that next big project is the book. And before all that, I'm also working on I'm putting together a mastermind group and a coaching group. So I'm building that. So, but the bucket list thing, yeah, it's the book.
Oh, love it. I love it, love it, love it. And so where can the audience get in touch with you and, on your website? And do you have a freebie that is something that they could, get that would be helpful for them?
I do. They can reach me at zenyourden.com. And if they do zenyourden.com/freebies with an S on the end, plural, that will get them to a freebies page, and they can pick what they'd like. One of the most popular ones on there is 9 tips for decluttering any room. And it's a 1-pager. It's really popular. It'll help you get on track and stay motivated and use whatever little bit of time you have to, start to make a dent in a big project. So again, that's zenyourden.com. And if you do /freebies, then you'll get to that page with those choices.
I love it. And I'll be sure to check it out myself. This has been wonderful. We're going to make sure that you're in the group, and I'll put all the links underneath so that they can reach you and your website. I'll also be on YouTube so they can get the replay there as well. And I want to thank you so much for just coming and, sharing your expertise with our coaches in the group.
You are so welcome. Thank you,
Thank you
Lisa.
so much. Okay. Bye-bye.